Hi guys, it's Nathan here from Headbangers. Today we've got Josh from Cattle Decapitation. This one was a personal favourite for us because we've been a massive fan of Cattle Decapitation since we can really remember, since we've really got into death metal. So it was great to actually be able to speak to one of the members. Um, yeah, so we just mainly talk about a lot about guns towards the end as well, and just everything to do with the new record and everything to do with death metal. So yeah, please check out the episode. If you like the podcast and you do want to support us, don't forget we also have Patreon and we also are on every streaming service and on YouTube. So don't forget to give us a like and subscribe. And if you are listening to us on a streaming service, please leave us a rating because that really does help us out. We also have social media. So if you want to drop us a follow, it's Headbangers Podcast everywhere except for Twitter, where it's Headbangers Pod 1. But without any further ado, here's the episode. Welcome back to the Headbangers Podcast, where your hosts Nathan and Brad. Here today we're joined by Josh from the mighty Cattle Decapitation. How are you doing to start off with?
Great, doing great. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure. So we like to start off with a little icebreaker on our show. We want to ask, what's your funniest tour story? I imagine you've got quite a lot of them after all those years. What springs to mind?
Well, there's so many of them are just not repeatable. I mean,
It's a
that's
safe space
not.
here.
It's mostly It's most of it's been like me just sitting here going like and laughing. Seeing you know I don't want to say amusing behaviors happen in front of me. But as far as like really funny stuff, that's like not uh, of that ilk. Geez. I mean, well, I could think of something that was nearly tragic that thankfully, I'm standing here today because of the actions of another person. We were on tour in Nebraska, and I think 2000, or going through Nebraska, we weren't playing in Nebraska, but like we were on the way home from a tour that ended, I believe, in Nashville, and we had to drive, of course, all the way across the United States to get back to San Diego. And our friend who lived in Denver, he was doing merch for us. So we were just going to drop him in Denver and then continue on to San Diego. This is like 7 a.m. So we were in our van, had a trailer. And so he was driving and just kind of doing that up all night, just pounding coffee and listening to music sort of thing. And maybe like 30 minutes outside of Lincoln, Nebraska, and the rest of us were asleep. I was sitting directly behind him in the passenger seat, or the captain's chair behind his. Mm-hmm. And you hear, like, I was in that sort of twilight in and out of sleep because it's horrifically uncomfortable to try to sleep like half reclined in this stupid sticky fake leather chair, whatever. So in the middle of the summer, of course, too. So I hear him go. I just hear go. Oh shit. Oh shit. Oh shit. Oh fuck. And then just the whole vehicle slam on the brakes and lurch forward. Everyone's like, this and that. And I kind of like do that sort of, you're being pushed backwards, but I'm also laying down. So I kind of do this lift up to see. So I'm like, and I see this car literally like barrel rolling straight towards us.
Oh my God.
And it kind of hit maybe 10 feet in front of the van and did this sort of little pirouette and then spun and just kept rolling off to the side of us. And so we're just like, immediately pull the side, jump out. And there's this car that has landed upright, but in the ditch, like had gone in the ditch and was in this field off the highway. And apparently we got the story later that the driver fell asleep and had crossed the median, going, full highway speeds, and it gone through the median, hit the other side, and kind of launched and hit the ground and was doing the barrel roll towards us. And then for whatever reason, sort of pirouetted and then went off into the ditch and into a field. So, when we parked and got out, we kind of just noticed, you could see the impact, like the little crater in the pavement where it hit. And our skid, from our tires, when we slammed on the brakes, intersected with that. So if it had been like maybe a millisecond earlier, we would have directly collided into this car that was barreling across the highway. So thanks to JP Stoyer, rest in peace. He's now deceased, unfortunately. He saved all of our lives, and we got out of our vehicle and ran over to this car that had flipped over, and there was three people in it. There was like a maybe guy in his late teens, early 20s, a middle-aged woman, and then a kid. And everyone, of course, it was turned out to be a mother, her son, her older son, and then her younger son. And apparently, we kind of, after everything cleared up, we went and checked back with the police department in that area to see what happened. And apparently, they were all wearing their seatbelts, but the younger kids wasn't like, it's like he didn't have the shoulder harness on or something. He just had the lap thing. So the mother and the teen and the older son survived, and the child unfortunately did not.
Wow.
And I mean, and when we went up to the vehicle, he was not in good shape. So that was like one of those experiences that like I don't talk about, not for any sort of like, PTSD reason, but I just, don't talk about much. And then I think about it. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's another one of those tour stories. It's like, not very amusing, but just kind of like, yeah, shit happens out there.
It's weird. It's like I imagine not being that close to death almost. It must be absolutely crazy, and just seeing like what could have been. So you guys are lucky there.
It was terrifying. Yeah. I mean, especially like when there's that realization, like you're shaken up from like jarring because you slam on the brakes and you see this car accident, and you just kind of like, wait a minute. Oh no. So yeah, that was one of those touring experiences. It's just like kind of mind blower stuff. So thankfully, I'm here to talk about it with you today.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh yeah, it's especially like stuff like that where it's like literally a fraction of a second difference could have meant your phone, gone, or like I had like a similar experience, not to the same sort of level, but remember once like me and my friend were driving back from Sheffield. Now the motorway there's no fucking lights until you get to like where we're based in Leeds. So you literally can't see what the fuck's like next to you or anything like that until you see a light past you. We come off the motorway and there's like a little slip road. It looks like it's just going to be a straight. So we come off doing obviously motorway speeds. Turns out it's only just like a curve. So the only straight bit is as you're coming off. So like Danny quickly had to turn the fucking car, and he was like, you could see he was struggling to keep hold of it. And like luckily we narrowly missed just slamming into the wall. But it was like it was one of those where it's like, gee, if he hadn't realized, oh shit, it's a turn now, like just a second, we would have just crashed. And it's terrifying.
That stuff, like, I don't know, messes with my stomach. Messes with my stomach when I hear
it. I mean, pretty much straight after there was a laugh in the car, because at least Danny went, right, not gonna lie, I thought I was gonna lose it there. And all started laughing, but it was like, yeah, that was fucking close.
There was like some shit. Oh god, let's go.
But in Brighton news,
it's like, let's just keep driving.
Let's just go.
Yeah, in Brighton news, obviously we've managed to thankfully listen to Terrasite a bit early from Metal Blades, but
great,
absolute masterpiece. And every time I listen to a Cattle Decap record, I'm like, what do they put in your guys' coffee? Because it's always a 10 out of 10 album. Like there's some secret formula that you guys have, like you're just selfishly stealing all the riffs from everybody else. But yeah, honestly, absolute masterpiece. Instantly,
thank you.
There's lots of elements that we know and love. There's some like interesting like black metal parts in there that I noticed, especially in stuff like We Are Young. What was going into the inspiration of this album? Because if I'm correct, it was also quite a lot of years in the making, like back and forth, going back to it. Tell me about it anyway.
Yeah, I think Travis mentioned he said, I think it was some sort of like a quote he had that was like 8 years in the making, and I think that's what for him, that's just his conceptual idea. I think he kind of originally had that many years ago, and then kind of based on the trajectory of and let's say for 8 years, that's Anthro and Death Atlas, that encompasses that time period. I think he kind of got detoured off that, and then he saw, here's an opportunity to present it now. So yeah, he had probably little bits of that, but he was really like after Death Atlas kind of forced, and was just like, oh wait, this totally works, that concept. So it's a sort of synergistic thing that he could finally flesh out after that much time. But as far as the musical part of it goes, we had, like everyone else, just pandemic stuff to deal with, and then 3 of the 5 of us don't live in San Diego. 2 of the 5 of us don't live in the United States. So it's like, that became an extenuating circumstance in writing for this record, which the past few records, there's always been, or not always, but there's seems to be just sort of some sort of factor that complicates things each time.
Right.
After Anthropocene came out, which was 2015, maybe I think the first part of 2016, Dave moved back to Seattle, and he'd been in San Diego for like 7 years at that point, I think, because he just loved Seattle and wanted to go back there. So he did that. So we had to write Death Atlas kind of, all the rest of us were in San Diego. He was up there. He would come out occasionally. We'd have these writing sessions, but there was a lot of like, riffs sent back and forth and all that kind of stuff. Not like a lot of bands or some bands do where like entire albums are written just sending files or sending Pro Tools sessions to each other. I mean, definitely wasn't the case. It was still, and still was then for Death Atlas, and then was for the most recent record too. A very much a caveman-y, like, here, I'm going to put my phone next to this really small amp that I'm using. It sounds like crap. Could you figure out the riff in here? And so, and then this is the best was, I'll explain in a second, but the rig I had to try to send riffs was incredible. But so after Anthropocene for Terrasite, Dave's still in Seattle, Ollie's in Montreal, and this, starting late 2020, I was in Belgrade. So I'm basically, I got to send riffs back and forth, or just like, hey, check this out. So my rig was like, I was playing into a laptop with a really kind of janky sort of amp simulator thing. Had computer speakers, just playing it in the room in a very echoey, big kind of living room. So it just sounded like cavernous. And then I was using my phone to record it. And then to play to a click, I had my iPad with an app I downloaded that had a click track on, or looks like a metronome. So phone, iPad, laptop, computer speakers. I hope there's some sort of coherence to this. And most of the time there wasn't, but we did get a few of those riffs actually ended up making it on the record. But there's a lot of commuting, I mean, we try to get together maybe a couple, once a month for like 3 or 4 days. Dave and I'd plan out, meeting up in San Diego. He'd fly down and I'd fly all the way over, and we just work those times, go back, do our own homework on our own, and, kind of maybe come up with some new stuff, bring it back in, record it, send it, record it and send it to each other in advance of coming back. And it was just a process. And I have a feeling with this, whenever the next writing starts, it's going to be the same process, but I have a feeling we might take a little more time to actually, or I mean, I can speak personally, like a little more time to like, okay, get comfy with a recording program and send actual like layered parts and everything like that, a little more, put together. So we'll see, but maybe the magic is complete ineptitude. I don't know.
It's insightful,
we'll
to be
see.
fair. It's insightful because, like, when you think about an album being made, like, you don't think about all these little nits and crannies that need to go into it, and just like, the sending back and forth of the riffs, like, those little steps that you mentioned, which I don't know if a lot of bands do that, but I imagine that is the case, especially during the COVID times. So it's kind of interesting to see how it all formed and came together, because it's not always just everyone being in the same room, especially when you live like cities apart.
Yeah.
Sure.
And I mean, we'd love to. I mean, every record had been written with everyone in San Diego in the same room since the beginning of the band, up until we started for Death Atlas writing. So it was like, we were so used to that. And I mean, to a certain extent, that's how we want to do a lot of it. It's the in-person thing is just invaluable. I think it's like, you don't like sending stuff and constructing it remotely and just kind of modular sort of songs put together without like that immediate sort of, call and response, or, seeing the reaction of your bandmates, or
it takes the magic out of it in a way.
Exactly. It's like, you don't have, it becomes like, you're just like, I don't know. Yeah. It's your creative input, their creative input for these parts. But then it's like hearing them loud in a room with other people. That's where it really kind of like, these sort of wheat from the chaff kind of thing, as far as, because there's some stuff that sounds great recorded. It's like, oh, this is super sick. And then, once, we'll get drums behind it, it'll sound even better. And all of a sudden, but you do it in person, and what's maybe great remotely is not as great, in person. I don't know. So I think we still need to be a mostly in-person writing band with, ideas sent to each other so we could be familiar with them, that can be remote. But I think the vast majority of writing still has to be in person, as impractical as that seemingly is becoming, for each person's sort of life right now. But I think it's an essential thing in our band.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I think when you write an album, it's such a sonic experience. Do you know what I mean? Like, and being in the room together is just one of those things where you all hear it at the same time in the same place, and it's like, oh, they just sort of like in the air, like you just like, oh no, this bit after the if you switch the bits round, or if you play like that on the drums, or if you try this, so it's just so much quicker, and I find it's a more fun experience as
Oh
well.
yeah, absolutely. And you're not sitting there like, oh, hold on, let me send this text real quick that conveys this, and like thinking how to say it that's like constructive or like really articulates what you're trying to say, as opposed to the studio, which you can, most of it can be gibberish, but you're going to get what the other person's trying to convey with like, oh, do this there instead of here, and then after, it's, you can just talk in musician gibberish and it'll be conveyed. I know how I work, and I'd be like, if I'm writing an email response, I'd be like, okay, here, I'll do bullet points on, this and this and that. And it's this thing that I have to sit down and do when I could actually say those things directly to someone in 20 seconds,
Sure.
So I don't know. A ton of bands to their, and, to their success, do write a lot of stuff, remote from one another. They could live on different continents or different parts of the U.S. or whatever country they are, like huge expanses, distances between them, and they'll do that. And I mean, I think we're kind of stuck in the, two, I hate to say this, but two old guys, me and Travis, relatively speaking, and, two younger guys, like Dave's right in the middle. He's around 40. Travis is 48. I'm 47. And then Bell and Ollie, I think Bell's 34 and I think Ollie's 33 or 32. But, you have two Gen Xers, one sort of late elder millennial, maybe early Gen X or late Gen X. And then, millennials, straight up millennials. It's just like, I don't know, like we're kind of in this zone where like we want to still keep doing it old school. And I think the other guys too are just like operate kind of that way within their bands as well. They're not, like Ollie, our bass player is, he'll put up stuff playthroughs online all the time. So, I mean, it's not like he's this Luddite who can, just checks his email and that's it. And he's savvy, and then Bell, our other guitar player, he's, he'll send these, recordings to us. It's like, two guitar tracks, it's like done on his Logic, on his Mac and stuff like that and stuff. So it's not like there's this sort of lack of literacy in that regard, but I just think we all kind of know that we work best in person, and yeah, we can send each other riffs here and there, but it's that in-person immediate, response and experience that really kind of is the most productive.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah. One thing I wanted to ask you as well is like, obviously you guys have been around for a while, and it's one of those things where I'm never not surprised by how brutal a Cattle Decap record could be. Like it's every time I'm like, they've topped it again, and like I'm never not surprised by it, and it's always such a heavy experience, but different each time in ways as well. What I wanted to ask is like, what's like the secret to really staying as brutal and as keeping it as fresh as possible, really?
I think like this, it's two different things. Yeah, I think okay on the brutality end. I think our Dave, our drummer, really like he'll it's not like he reins us in like the rest of us are trying to do sort of like less brutal, stuff. But his playing is so aggressive, and he's so, he doesn't have to be going a million miles an hour, but he's always max intensity for whatever he's doing. So I think that even if like strings, guitar wise, what we're doing is more like almost textural or, almost pretty at times or whatever at certain spots, Dave's still just like laying it down. So I think there's still people hear that. And since I think modern music is so much more rhythm oriented than melody, or at least in the classic way, it's kind of, whereas like classic metal and then thrash and stuff, it was, the drums are a big part of it, but guitars are like the forefront. Now it's like evened out. The drums are the rhythm parts like a little more important, at times. So I think people just are trained to that and latch onto it. So he's flying, doing his stuff or just super intense performance elements. And I think that kind of keeps the brutality, as you said, amped up there. And plus with two guitar players now, I don't have to, like before where I had to kind of straddle these sort of desires to do like sort of maybe some more off the wall stuff or more some ambient textural or melodic thing. I didn't have to try to make that coexist with just being just like, the entire time. So, Bell can do that stuff, or he can move up and do some things he wants to do. And then I'll stick with this sort of heavier stuff, whichever. We'll just, cut and paste or, just call and response on that. But there's always someone doing that, some string doing that. So you have Dave and you have that keeps it brutal. And then for the other element, what was the other thing you said? Because I had a really decent thought there that I totally ran away from.
It was sort of keeping it like fresh, just like there's always something that surprises you along the way in the album.
Yeah, I think we kind of, I don't know, I think we kind of each get into a new thing between records, and we're super excited about whatever that thing is, and you'll probably hear little bits and pieces of it try to kind of worm its way into the writing. And maybe it's not fully realized with whatever album you start to kind of maybe have that leach out on. But the next record is when it's like, oh, there it's a thing. So I think with each record, there's like little bits coming out. And then the thing that's the forefront is the thing from the last record, which was kind of leaking out. So it's that sort of process, so there's a freshness to that where there's like slight familiarity. Like, oh, I remember hearing little bits of that on the last record. And then it's like, well, here are the next ones. This is a fleshed out thing. So there's enough familiarity to have it like not be this completely alien concept, but at the same time, I don't say it's underdeveloped, but it was not as fully realized as it was on that record. So it's this kind of continued engagement of us dipping our toes into something and then finally like feeling super confident with it, or much more confident, I should say, not super confident, and then employing it in a way that's like a little more forefront for the records,
Yeah.
And then, and I think Otero mixes it that way too. Like he could tell like, oh, it's a little thing they're kind of fiddling with. And then the next record, it's like those sort of experimental elements are a little brought up in the mix, so where people hear it, it's not this jarring, like out of left field thing to where they're like, who is this band now? What are they doing? This is completely alien concept. So I don't know. I think there's a lot of sort of, I don't want to say strategic, but just sort of very judicious sort of decisions made for the sake of the song, but also just like the sort of scope of the band and people's perceptions to it, I mean, we could do some, if we wanted to do just like a record that was completely like, I don't know, an entire, like we did like a cover of the Dead Can Dance that we put on some of the bonus, it was a bonus track for Death Atlas. We could probably do an entire record like that, but would anyone want to listen to it? We couldn't call it Cattle Decapitation. We could, but they'd be like, I'm glad you guys are. I'd love to do that sort of thing, but it'd be like, I guess you guys are at the point in your careers when you can just go, we're just going to do this type of record, and okay, that'd be first get Metal Blade like, hey, could you give us? Okay, we'll do it on our own dime.
I think that's a really interesting point, though, because like there's been so many times where people have introduced just like a completely different style, and then they're taking like a big step in their like records, and like sometimes it will, they'll lose their existing audience. So it's great to always have the idea of what your existing audience wants, but also give them something new.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really good that you've got that sort of mentality where it's like, well, we could do that, but like, is that what our audience wants to hear?
Yeah, I mean, there's certain things that we like that are Cattle elements that it's not that we have to keep delivering this exact same thing, but that stuff's always going to be there, but just comes sort of out differently each time. But then there's like I said, that little bit of experimentation or like a new thing in there. So you're not like completely, okay, what was our most successful record? Okay, which one? Okay, let's try to rewrite that with slightly different risks. How many more times? It's like, there's people who, and this is fine, but their favorite record by us is Monolith, which is fine. But we've not gone and tried to, or in actuality, tried to recreate any of that. It's just move forward. You know what I mean? There's certain like structural things to the albums that may be similar, but not the music itself. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, as well as like Terrasite being like amazing musically, like concepts wise, what inspired you to write that? What was going on in that department too?
Musically or just overall?
Just like concepts wise of the
Oh,
album.
okay. With the album, Travis is. I think after Death Atlas, you kind of like you're worked into a corner. Yeah, conceptually, because it's like, well, this is just sort of like this end of now for reals. It's the end of humanity. I know we kind of flirted with it before. But these people are a bunch of dead people on that beach, but hey, we mean it this time. If Death Atlas had that finality to it, then you're just kind of like, well, where do you go? Like, are we going to start some space band or something? It's just we're not going to be one of those bands. It's like some sort of tech band that sings about multiple dimensions or whatever. No offense to them, but you know what I mean. Just for us,
it's a concept that you can keep going with. I mean, like that's never not going to be an issue at the moment. So I think that's what we come to love as well from Cattle.
Yeah, so we don't necessarily want to go to there. So like Travis had that kind of that, like we discussed, like he kind of had that sort of brewing off on the back burner for a while, but then he thought about it and was just like, well, this is the end of everything. Well, there's always some sort of rebirth, I guess you could say. And what is the element that's always like, stereotypically, I think it was like cockroaches could survive a nuclear holocaust, haha, whether that actually is true or not. But probably not. But that's sort of like this whatever common folklore, and I guess you could say. So it was just like, okay, well, maybe he had this idea with like our sort of like the pictures on the inside of Death Atlas were these almost like Pompeii style bodies were on the insert. He's like, well, what if there's this sort of new evolved creature that is sort of half human, half roach, and it's this has the sort of hardy survival sort of element of a roach, but this sort of self-destructive nature of a human. So it's like, here's this new entity, and then, well, that's almost like kind of gives yourself here's our reset button, So there's all these elements now of like, well, here's this new sort of life form on Earth that is pretty much this predatory, Earth eater, as he put it, that's just going to come in and destroy everything. That nothing was learned. It's just another evolved destructive element, So after this record, I really don't know what he's going to do. I mean, yes, you can go places with that because it's like a start over sort of thing.
Yeah.
But what's the next deal? I don't know. I don't know if he does either. So we'll find out here in, year and a half or whatever when he starts talking about it.
It's a cool concept, to be fair. Like I can imagine that being a movie. You guys need to do he needs to pitch this to Netflix or something. I'll definitely watch it.
Yeah. I was going to say like there'd be something come out of it, but I don't know. Like, and then musically, I don't even know. I mean, I say that every time, but it's like, oh, what neat pedal did you buy this time that you can, start writing a bunch of stuff around? Or, oh, what did you start listening to this type of music? Oh, this and that, So I don't know. All of us really like that whole resurgence. I mean, granted, these bands are not new anymore by any stretch of imagination, but the whole like kind of 80s revival, but more aggressive, like a Carpenter Brute, that kind of stuff, or certain eras of Perturbator, one of those, or there's a lot of bands that are doing kind of like sort of gothy new wave mixed with the 80s electronic that's just super cool.
Yeah, like great.
Yeah, it's basically like Evil Knight Rider music.
Yeah, there's this guy, I think he's called Miss Kitty, and he does like the kind of gothy tech stuff that's come out, and it's just really atmospheric. Like it's got like all of synths and everything like that. And it's just so relaxing to listen to, and we're seeing like waves of people sort of pop up that are making that music as well.
It's become crazy prevalent. Like it's amazing. Like you just go on like Bandcamp or whatever, you get like the YouTube thing where they like suggest to their artists or just have these giant playlists, and you could just go and like I remember like I'll be cooking or something like that and just click on one of those and just do my stuff to it. And I'm like, I know they're just picking, the best of the best, their favorite songs, but it's like, God, all these bands are amazing. Holy crap. you know? So I don't know. That's really neat. I mean, it'd be neat. And this is just me speaking. I can't speak for the rest of the guys, but it'd be cool to have like, I don't want to say the electronic, like obviously not drum machine, but just sort of like really driving, but with like the sort of like not gothic, but just sort of textural element, which we kind of do some of that on this album and some on Death Atlas. But I mean, just really a little more like realized. That'd be kind of cool to do.
Let's do a feature with Carpenter, bro. That'd be an interesting collab.
Dude, I mean, he actually, if you look him up, he's done a ton of collabs on there, but he did one with David Eugene Edwards from Woven Hand. That's I think the song is called Fab Tool or something like that. I mean, I'm a huge David Eugene Edwards, like any one of his bands, 16 Horsepower, Woven Hand. That's like my favorite shit. But I was just flipping through there, listening to Carpenter Brute, and then on the playlist, it was like featuring, Carpenter Brute, featuring guest vocals by David Eugene Edwards. I'm like, oh crap! Well, here, I've kind of just recently gotten to Carpenter Brute or whatever. Like that was a few months ago, and then I was like, wow, here's one of my favorite artists. And so I listened to it, and it's incredible. That song is super sick, So I don't know if the Mr. Brute or whatever his name is would have any interest in doing anything with this, but that would be like stuff like that is what after a certain point you just like you love stuff like that. It's like you're in the cycle. It's like write a record, tour, whatever. Which of course you're doing it for a reason. You love creating and you love touring, whatever. But like little stuff like that off to the side is like, it's cool. And then you can listen to the song a bunch because it's not your song, or it's like you're just a guest on it. You're not like that's my tune, No, you don't want to do that. It's just like, well, I did a little something here, I guess, but, I don't know. Yeah.
Because I think I get this, and I don't know if it's the same for you, but because I'm in a band as well, but when because I'm writing metal, I find that it's really hard for me to listen to it as well after, because you're always writing and you're there like, I've just had like 8 hours or something like that. I'm just constantly thinking of like a bit to put here, or like looking for inspiration to put there, or something like that. I just want to listen to something more chill. Like, do you ever get that same thing? And that's what kind of drives you to it.
Absolutely. I mean, in the majority of what, I listen to is probably, I don't know. It's funny because I've lived like abroad and I still have my same cell phone plan from the States. It can do international or whatever, T-Mobile, but like, of course I'm like not going to chip in for like the full package where you like just have, 5G everywhere so you can listen to music while you're walking. I'm like, no, I have my internet. I have this and this. I don't need to pay X amount of more a month for that. So that's how I used to listen. I mean, I had my iPod for years. That's how I'd listen to music. And now it's like that, bye bye, Mr. iPod. But, have my phone. So if I'm in Europe, it's like, well, I just can't have that immediate sort of thing. So I have to really find time to listen to music, because I don't, I'm over here. So I'm not driving like in the States a bunch where I can just listen to music in the car. So, I'll do it while I'm cooking here, So when I'm doing that, it's usually like, I'll put in those mixes of like kind of the gothic and like sort of I don't say industrial, but kind of like 80s new wave, like gothic sort of thing. I'll put that stuff on for like non-metal brutal music or whatever. And like I said, I listen to a ton of like, like Woven Hand, 16 Horsepower, like dark gothic Americana kind of stuff. And
I love the dark gothic stuff. That's great.
I love, And then for like actual metal stuff, like it's I was telling someone else recently, it's like a springtime for the super like, cassette only label, kind of, just super terrible, but in the best and most amazing. It's like you hear the recordings, it's like this is amazing and awful at the same time, but the middle ground is just the best. There's so many bands coming out that are just super, super sick, and that really like, one man, the whole one man black metal band thing was like, first came to prominence with like, Leviathan, Zasser, all those bands, that era. But now it's like people can fully really, get into the whole bedroom project thing because of the ease of having recordings, set up at your house. So there's a lot of bands that are coming out that are making super lo-fi, incredible sounding stuff that I'm just once again, it's like with the other, like the Gothic stuff, you just put a playlist, find, oh, I really like, this label, like, oh, Mystic Chaos is a great label, or, Fallen Empire, which doesn't exist anymore, but like labels like that, where you can just listen to their whole catalog and just be like blown away by these bands that probably never will play live. It's probably just a lot of them are international collaborations by, there's one dude from Iceland, two guys from the States, one guy from Germany, and one dude from South Africa or something. Just crazy,
Yeah, it's an interesting time for sure.
Yeah.
I want to ask as well, like, obviously, like Cattle's been a band that's had heavy political ties. It's been like the concept for most of the albums. Was this something that like you guys were passionate about before you made Cattle Decapitation? Like you came together like, right, let's write about this stuff, or like did you come together to say we just want to write metal, and then the concepts came later on that we wanted to be into that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I think like when the band started, it was two of the guys were two of them were in the band The Locust. And they wanted, they both grew up on metal, and they wanted to have like, okay, here's our more metal oriented band. That's our side project. So separate from The Locust, they just like did Cattle as their side thing. And then that sort of changed over the years. There was those two guys and another fellow, and then the other fellow disappeared. They recorded one EP, which is the 10 Torments of the Damned, like 7-inch single that's out. They recorded that like 2 months into that. They just wanted to get something out to sell on tour with the Locusts when they were touring with them, so they could sell, and just like, oh, we sold 10 records tonight. Okay, let's split, $40 or whatever, So they recorded a bunch of songs real quick, put it out, but then the original guy disappeared. So that's when Travis came in to Cattle, that early version of Cattle. And he was originally the guitar player and singer. And Dave Astor played bass and sang as well. And then Gabe Serbian played drums. In The Locust, Dave played drums, Gabe Serbian played guitar. So shuffle that around, a few years later, Travis was just singing as whatever, we know him. Dave Astor playing drums, Gabe playing guitar. Then they brought in a bass player like 1999. And then 2001, late 2000, I moved to California. And then 2001, I joined the band. And then as the second guitar player, but then Gabe Serbian quit maybe 3 weeks into me being in the band, because the Locust that he was still playing with was just got so busy at that point that he was like, this kills me to do, guys. But I mean, this guy just joined, so I'm not leaving you ass out. You have a guitar player, which is me. So it's like he quit to do the Locust full time, because at that point in their career, they were just super busy and touring constantly. So, I mean, I think for him, I think he made the right decision there. But, we just kind of took our own path. And I mean, the band came together originally like as a side project from The Locust, and any sort of political or like sort of ethical oriented stuff, it was like Travis' lyrics that kind of, and the imagery that we chose for the albums, those early albums, was very much centered on that. So the band was up until I think until 2010, maybe 9 or 10. Everyone was vegetarian in the band, and it wasn't a requirement. It wasn't like a thing like, we're so militant, this and that, you can't be in this band unless you. It was just like, it just keeps working out this way, And then Dave was for a little while. Depends who you talk to. But then he finally was. He's mostly always been omnivorous. When he joined the band, it was like, oh, I'll be vegetarian or whatever. But we never said it was a requirement, and we didn't. Anyway, so since then, it's been more like me and Travis are the sole remaining vegetarian people, and everyone else has been omnivorous post like 2009. So, and it's more about, the lyrics and all that stuff, and any sort of moral, ethical sort of attachment. Those are his words, but they've come to represent the band, because it's been that way for 25 years or whatever. So, you may ask, one of the other members about that sort of stuff, and they may have answers ranging from, it's not really my speed, to, oh, I don't agree with that at all. You know, I mean, for the sort of like, I don't know, people usually just ask Travis or myself maybe about the conceptual elements. So the other guys are spared in that. They don't have to be like, well, actually. So
No, I think yeah, I mean, like it's made some great concepts for the albums for sure, and I didn't imagine, like you said, that'll be the thing. Like, you see the band contracts need to be vegetarian. Nope, see ya, fuck off. You can't be part of the band.
Yeah. It's like I think it's like we're a band first, we're musicians first, and we just were. I don't want to say it's lucky, but it's happened to be that way for so long, like 14, 15 years of the band, and then it wasn't. So I mean, I don't know. I think, like, as long as we retain, Travis's sort of like direct, like his sort of trajectory on, the sort of concepts, I think we're all good, because the focus of the band has kind of shifted over time too. Lyrically, it's more like now it's just very anti-human, which is, not exactly unique in our genre, but at the same time,
you guys do it the best, though, to be honest.
I was gonna say, but like his the way he articulates that, and the artwork that goes along with that, and everything else, he does it the best. I think.
I have like a funny moment of Cattle Decap, to be fair, because me, Nathan, and a few of our friends saw you guys at Bloodstock. We were so excited.
Oh, okay.
And it was like, obviously, with your guys' lyrical content, it was like the hottest summer as well of like UK.
Oh,
and
I
was like, global warming has never been more prominent, and we're watching Cattle Decap when there's a fucking dust storm just going in the mosh pit. I'm like trying to cover my eyes, but having like the best time ever. I'm like, this is so ironic, really, when you think about it.
Yeah, I remember that day was so ridiculously hot. I just remember like, I'm going to feel like the biggest douchebag ever, but I got to wear my sunglasses while we're playing, because it was just like, I didn't want every picture, if people were doing video, I didn't want every one of them to be like me going, staring into the sun. So, you'd see footage later. I'm like, it looks like such an idiot. But I mean, at the time, it was a practical thing. But yeah, I just remember how hot it was that day. It was insane. Yeah, and you'd look out and see people had like dust in like the corner of their eyes. It was like this dough from them sweating in their tear ducts, like like just doing what they do. It was
never
terrible.
seen a sand tornado brewing in the mosh pit. That was a new one for me.
Yeah. But then the evening was super nice. Like, I probably just because it cooled down to a regular temperature, and it was just like, oh, this is gorgeous. So we just me, David, Travis just walked around the grounds and probably ate like idiots, and just like, what do you have that's terrible for me? has to be vegetarian though.
Oh, all the food was terrible.
It's just like, I'm just going to be like, well, I'll just dump like French fries and falafel into my face, and then ice cream.
I tell you what, the ice cream vans at Bloodstock, they really capitalized. I remember I paid for an ice cream. I was there like, that motherfucker.
I know, dude. I had like an embarrassing amount of those, because it's like we'd go do the whole circuit, and we're like, I finished mine in like 2 minutes. Hey, dude, we still got tokens. There's another one. All right, So we're like walking around three grown men with these ice cream cones, all doo-doo-doo-doo.
I'll boil ice cream. It's like...
Yeah, exactly. Hey, you guys at Cattle Decapitation? We're like, ice cream's dripping down our face. Like, yeah.
I love that so much.
Honestly, it was so hot. I think that's the hottest I've ever been at a festival in the UK ever.
Yeah, I've never seen it. The only time, obviously, like poorly ventilated venues in the UK, all of us are very used to, but actually like outside being that warm, that was insane. Like, I didn't like, that's one of those sort of like, you get alerts via like the government or like, city administration saying like, yeah, we have heat index warning, or, heat index advisory today, stay indoors, put a cold cloth on the back of your neck or whatever they, drink plenty of fluids, that kind of thing. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I got one of them whilst I was out there, and I was there like, I can't be indoors.
Yeah,
I physically can't go inside.
Well, it's funny too, because Dark Funeral was like right after us, and those poor guys are like that full armor, like all that leather armor, and then like the singer has like some sort of like Aegis breastplate thing, and then more armor on top of it, and like some weird top layer. And we're walking around down there, and I go up to one of the guitar players. I'm like, man, I do not envy you guys right now. And he literally just stood at me and was like, we will be fine. I'm like, okay.
The mass black metal response.
I'll have the guys bring up some oxygen for you dudes. Just no offense, but and I mean they hammered it out. I'm surprised it didn't melt. Like I think the corpse paint may have been a little drippy by the time they came
I saw
off.
videos, yeah, but I was too hot to watch them, to be honest. I was gutted as well because I've waited so many years to see Dark Funeral, and I was like, I can't do it. I watched you guys, and I was like, well, I'm not missing Cattle Decap, but the main ones I'm going for. And then like, yeah, I was like, I need to take a rest, otherwise I will pass out.
Oh yeah. Those I don't blame you. Like there's a lot of those because that whole tour was primarily fests with some fill-in club shows, and it was just incredible how hot it was. Like I mean, ridiculous. I'm used to that in the US, but like I just was shocked. You're just sort of I don't know how many people we talked to. They're like, oh yeah, I had to lay down like for a legitimate. It was not just any sort of it is ever so hot out here, but just like legitimately health risk scary. Where Absolutely. They were like, yeah, because there was one of the first shows in Germany in Oberhausen, like it was like one of the not fest shows, and it was on the grounds of a like an arena. So there was the big bands were outside in the festival grounds, and we were inside in this. Still is an arena, but still inside. And there were people just walking around outside, like there is no shade. Literally, the concrete is just, it's just absorbing all the sun and just baking our shoes, and you just feel the heat coming up. And there's no water, and there were people basically like huddled under like little shades and sitting there, and like there's the eaves of buildings just like trying to get out of the sun. So that was like a not unfamiliar thing over the course of the summer. It was just super crazy.
Yeah, I had I before going to Woodstock, I watched the Woodstock documentary, the week before.
The original one or the one from '99? The one about which one? The original Woodstock?
No, the one in the last ever Woodstock.
Like the
Netflix documentary thing.
Yes. I saw that on a flight. I had to watch it twice because it was
insane.
Amazing.
I saw it like the week before going, and I remember because when we got there, I was dying because I had to drag one of our cart, like a cart all the way up with all our shit in it, and like the wheels had broke off, so I literally dragging it.
Like a sled.
Yeah, well, as soon as I got in, I heard someone that worked there, like on the radio, going, "Yeah, we've not got any water in one of the camps," and it was the camp we were staying at. And I remember I dropped the fucking cart. I turned around to my girlfriend and I'm like, right, I swear to God, after watching that Woodstock fucking documentary, they better get some water in this fucking camp.
Well, they know what people are capable of,
Yeah.
I was there. I just had like a flash, just like roll over my eyes, like, oh God, no!
Please,
this is how it starts.
Yeah, I remember when that, like, watching that when it was when it was happening. Like I think MTV had like it was, we got live footage. We're constantly, I don't want to say streaming, but it's just live as it happens, all that. And it was like seeing some of they had helicopters at that point because drones, at least in the capacity they are now, didn't exist. But there's like helicopters going over the crowd, and you're like, this is insane. And this is probably like in August, or the worst possible time to have it. It's so hot. And it was just, however many 100,000, 200-some thousand people in one place. And it's just like, yeah,
absolutely.
It was sort of like destined to be this. Yeah, exactly what happened. Burning pallets and, people being carted off and, all these negative things about humanity all happening. So.
Yeah, too, right.
I mean, like, it was on tarmac as well in the middle of August. It's like, do you not think the heat's going to get to some people?
Yeah, it's like double up your medic staff or EMTs or whatever, and just have a lot of oxygen and like maybe like IVs with like regenerative fluids or something in it. I don't know.
Yeah, at least something for sure.
One thing I wanted to ask you as well, just because like it's been a hot while since we got a death metal band on. And I always tend to ask a death metal band this. We've had like a bit of resurgence of like the older school of death metal,
Mm-hmm.
just over the years, and it's obviously all been fantastic, and we feel like we're in this new renaissance of death metal. I kind of want to ask you what is your thought on that, and also like what do you think was the catalyst for it?
I don't know. It's funny because I mean, yeah, there's this bands like Frozen Soul,
Oh yeah,
Psycho Creeping Death,
great bands.
200 Stab Wounds, all coming back. But it's funny, like I got to give them credit that they somehow have harnessed like a slam snare drum sound with like this kind of like, and I mean this in the most complimentary way, but like a late 80s, early 90s demo quality level recording sort of aesthetic and just overall, quality tonality for what I'm assuming is like maybe mostly people in their mid 20s, maybe mid to late 20s at the oldest. That's pretty incredible that they were able to just nail it like that. And it's funny that that's like, what they're kind of going for.
Oh yeah.
And then they hit it. So it's also funny too. Some of the bands are like, they've, I don't know if this was what they're influenced by or not, but before it was like, oh, we just want to do old school death metal. What does that mean? Oh, maybe some of the old earache stuff or some of the Floridian bands or that. And I think some of these bands are almost like had dug way deeper and are like, oh, we're gonna do like I don't know if you guys remember the label JL America at all. It was like
Yeah, sounds familiar.
I mean they did like sort of, when I say underground, I don't mean like it is now where it's just like we're underground, man, like where it's this conscious choice to stay underground. It's like underground by virtue of like, well, this band is from pre or infancy of the internet or pre-internet. Like there's a band from Gatlinburg, Tennessee that's on here, and it's like this collection of kind of like oddball death metal. And it's like these bands that are kind of doing old school stuff now are almost showing glimmers and elements of these sort of obscure bands from that time period. So it's really weird. I don't know if they're aware of it at all. There's just this sort of developmental thing that they all kind of hit at the same time, but it's strange.
Like they've captured the vibe, but like
they're
not copycatting any of the older bands, but they've sort of just got the vibe of what it was like back then and recreated it in their own way.
Yeah, and I could just like go find one of my old boxes full of cassettes from that time period, and just like, okay, close my eyes, grab one out of there, and just be like, this sounds like a band. Maybe one little thing is different. This sounds like a band that could have been from 2022. That a bunch of 23, 24-year-olds doing old school death metal. It's crazy. It's like how much they nail it at times. So we're actually going, 200 Stab Wounds is out with us in May. So
that's so cool.
Jealous.
I absolutely love that band. Like I remember they're probably one of the only ones that Spotify has ever like recommended to me. There was like, how did it get this? It was like I was listening to it like, this is spot on the stuff that I always would gravitate towards when it comes to like metal, because death metal was like probably like the number one genre I always listen to. So when I listened to them for the first time, I was like, holy shit, this is perfect. This is exactly what I wanted.
Yeah. That's we're doing that one, and then the first tour back we had after the pandemic, Creeping Death was on that we did, and then in the fall of this year, not yet to be named band, a band that I will not name yet, that may be somewhat closely associated with those other two bands that we may have mentioned previously about 5 minutes ago, we'll be out with them. So in the fall. So
it's so cool what's going on. Like I'm just such a massive fan of it, because the 90s death metal, like my friend James, he could tell you you could pick any band, no matter how obscure from that scene, and be like, here's this band. He could tell you if their vocalist stubbed his toe on the way into the recording booth. Like, so he just filled my head with like 90s death metal, like, and listening to those bands, like I was just sat there like, oh my God, it reminds me of this, but it also reminds me of that. And it's just so interesting. Like, I feel like we're privileged to be able to like live in a time where people can just, like release that to such a wide scale and
Mm-hmm.
nail it so well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and to have like, it's like the internet has become, for better or for worse, like, back in the day, we always had that one dude in your scene or someone you had in your social circle that had that. They were the encyclopedia. Like they had either the time, money, or had a lot of, like spent a lot of effort writing letters or sending their self-addressed stamp envelope with well-concealed cash or whatever to whomever, or read a lot of zines or whatever. Like that had access to all these bands and, had this sort of pen pal network or whatever that like, oh, there's this really cool band out of Columbus, Ohio, or this really cool band out of, Strasbourg, Pennsylvania, or whatever, that they could tell us all about. Now it's like we all have that sort of father, papa figure, mentor. Then it's just the internet. So now we have to just be very, very careful of what parts of that we look at for everyone's mental health. And, but it's cool. It's in a way, the human elements removed. Like I do miss having like, there's this one person, they always know the coolest shit. They're always turning people on to new stuff. Or like, I miss having this physical, tangible, like zine I can look at that I sent away for and waited 3 weeks to get it in the mail and all that. Like, or like I ordered a bunch of records and maybe hopefully a couple of them are really good. I hope I don't get burned, and this one sucks or whatever. But it's part of the fun of it all. Going into a record store and being like, depends on where, you're from and the availability, that kind of thing. But like just going in there and like trying to find those, like me writing, I had this little list on a little tiny little notebook that I just write down bands I want to find. So I crumpled up in my pocket and go into town and like go look for them all. And it was maybe 1 out of every 10 I could find,
No, I really enjoy that, to be honest. Like I still like the magic of doing that, which is something that I used to do when I was younger, like getting a CD from like, I don't know, we got somewhere called H&B, which is like a record store here. Then I got into vinyl collecting. So I moved away from CDs when Spotify came out, and I started to love vinyl again because Nathan recommended me to get one, and then now I've got an addiction to buying vinyls. Cheers, Nathan.
I've destroyed his wallet by doing that.
Destroyed it. But like
everyone needs that friend.
Yeah. There's like one near me called Crash Records, and like I used to order vinyls online, but I decided not to do that anymore because I like the magic of finally finding a vinyl that I really want. Like for example, there's like that new Turnstile album that came out like 2 years ago. Like I could not find it anywhere. Like I think it was just sold out for so long, and eventually I just went in one day. I wasn't even looking for it this time, and it just came across it, and I was like,
there you go.
Finally, a year in the waiting, but I got it.
Yeah. So I loved like, and like in my upbringing or whatever, I grew up in a very rural area. And so I had to going into town and, driving for 35, 40 minutes or whatever. And we had a college town. It was a Big Ten Midwest college town, 35, 40 minutes away. So of course there's college kids, they're spending their parents' money. There's record stores. So I was fortunate in the way I just had this sort of thirst for like, I didn't want to go to the ones at the mall. I mean, that's cool and all, but their selection is kind of limited. So I like searched out these places and like would just go in the phone book and look for record stores and just look at the address. I was like, oh, this is on the campus by the school. I bet this is going to be a cool record store. And so you had a handful that were there, and I would like get my mom to like drop me off, and I'd like, run down the block and go into these places. And I mean, for the most part, it was a wonderful time. But it's just like you go in these places and it's all kind of dingy. There's flyers everywhere, and there's like kind of smells weird, and all this stuff.
Oh, it's good.
Exactly right. And then you go in these record stores and there's like cats like laying on the piles of albums and CDs and everything like that, and you just like, okay, I'm starting at A, and there's like metal is right next to alternative, so you would just go through A through Z in both sections, and there was so much stuff. Whoever was doing their buying was just, or curating those sections was just incredible. And that was very, for me, like instrumental in forming like, what I listened to, and was able to like finally go places where I had that list. And I was like, oh, I could check more of these off because this person's actually buying this stuff. There's probably this tiny handful of people in that community that was buying or even cared about any of that stuff. But cool, there it was. And that's where I found all the old earache stuff. And that's where I found like a lot of the these sort of underground demos. Like there was like a demo section, and people would just, they'd sell them for like $2 or something for these cassette demos. And I found tons of like local metal that was mostly terrible, but a couple cool things here and there, and then some stuff from around the state to where like, oh, there's this really cool band from Springfield or cool band from Peoria or whatever, And then I moved to Chicago for college, and then it was over. That was like, well, you have every record store you'd ever want, and the most insanely, focused, narrow taste preferences. There you go. You can find a store that has that. And now all of us are spoiled because you can pretty much have the most ridiculous, obscure thing at your fingertips, anytime.
Absolutely.
So I think the best one I've got in my entire record collection was gifted to me literally like last Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
It was I can't remember, I think 25th anniversary of Cancer's record.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember the name of it, but it's the classic one with the guy with the cape flowing. It's such a great record, and like James recommended to me. I loved Cancer from like the minute I listened to that record, and he was there like, "Oh yeah, I got this for you," and I was there like, "What?" I was so fucking taken back by
buddy.
by
Thank
it.
you. Yeah.
I was there like, this is like easily like, and well, to be fair, Brad got me one that I'd wanted for years. Well, since it came out, God's Hate album. So I got both of them in the same span. I was like, to both of them, I was like, these are like easily like the two best ones I've got now. This is the best one, like out of everything in there. Like these are the ones that I probably would looked at the most, was like, and looked for, like, I want to get that. So yeah, I absolutely love collecting.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's like half of my record collection is at my brother's house in Illinois, or about half. Most of it is, and then I have a few things in San Diego still, and then I have a few things here, and it's just like I got my stuff everywhere. So it's like someday, whenever that is, I'll get all that stuff together. But for right now, it's like, listening to stuff via my phone or and just putting it on my little JBL speaker here.
For sure. So we are sort of coming to the end of the interview now. A new way that we like to leave with it off that we've been trying recently, which would be very fitting for Cattle Decapitation, actually. If it was the apocalypse, and who do you think you'd be least reliant on in the band, and who would you be most reliant on? Name and shame.
I don't know. Like for survival, like most reliant on, least reliant for survival, just basic survival. Okay.
Essentially, it can be any kind of apocalypse. It can be the cockroach mutated human apocalypse, or whatever you feel.
Well, actually, this is kind of like funny. Travis has gotten really into gunsmithing. Like that was his COVID kind of like
that's
COVID
super cool
indulgence. So I mean, that was when I say smithing, he's not like like forging the barrels and everything like that.
That's what I was thinking when you said it. To be fair,
I know. Smithing is it's probably like a bit of folksy term for it, I guess you could say. But he's really got into like, here I'm going to buy this gun, all the parts, and I'm going to put it together and really, educate himself on how it works and what parts are to maximize his effect and everything. And he was always by his account, a pretty good marksman. But COVID time really allowed him to indulge that part. So he's got a lot of, well, when I say a lot, for America, a decent amount, but nothing crazy. But for the rest of the world, he got a lot of guns. So I don't know how many that is. I'm just saying that. But if he still has those guns, that'd be a good person to be, hanging out with, so you could maybe borrow some to defend yourself. So for longevity purposes and survival, but this is not even taking the other guys into account and saying and weighing the like, oh, he's this or he's got this skill, or no. It's more like, well, here's a guy with the guns. If I can borrow some of those, I can just basically sit in an office chair and just spin in a circle and threat anyone that comes to near me.
Yeah, he's got the inventory, basically.
Exactly. He's got the inventory of that. As far as beyond the gun point, as far as his survival skills, I cannot, speak to that. So on that end, hey, he's got the guns. And as far as least, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe they'd probably all say me. I'd be like the least like I don't
So
know
luckily
why.
we got you, so so they can't vote for you.
Yeah, exactly. They'd be like, oh, I would, this guy, what's he got going on? I don't know. Like, it's like Bell's really knowledgeable. Like, he's a microbiologist,
Oh
so
wow.
he's super knowledgeable in that field. As far as apocalypse stuff, I guess he's very adept at knowing how to avoid viruses and sort of that kind of stuff. Ollie's a professional. Well, he's done a lot of cooking in restaurants, so I don't know. I can cook too, though, so
There you go.
I don't know. Maybe I'd have to name myself.
You have to have a cook-off.
Exactly, we'd have a cook-off to
Yeah,
see who's the
prove
most
yourself.
use. So see who's the most the biggest albatross in any of that.
To be
So
fair, I
and,
picked. Oh, go on, sorry.
no, I was saying as far as Dave goes, I don't know. He's like a he's like a bear in human form, so I don't know. He'd be pretty hard to like. They'd probably have him like chained up to a wall, and there'd be this like sort of like Thunderdome kind of thing where he would just come out and like you know wrestle some mutant or something like that. So you know he'd be that character.
Yeah,
I really
I,
haven't named
I,
a week late because I really don't know who that would be.
I picked my friend Danny just for the same reason you picked Travis. It's because
Mhm.
he's got guns. I was like,
It's a good enough
I
reason.
was
I mean,
like,
if it's a zombie
yeah.
apocalypse or something, you know.
If there's anything that
Yeah.
went down, I'd be like, hey Danny, you've got like 9 shotguns in there. Give me a shotgun. You can
Mhm.
spare him. So yeah, that's the
Yeah.
reason I picked my friend as well. It's like, yeah, it's the only person I know that has ammunition and guns.
Yeah, he's like Travis is like the arsenal, on
Yeah.
that. But it's like in California, like I mean, this is what I'm told. I mean, I don't own a gun, but in California, like the restrictions are constantly evolving. So you actually really do, if you're a gun owner and a responsible one, you have to be really constantly educating yourself on where the laws are because like with a lot of not gun related necessarily, but a lot of like laws for like property and taxes and stuff evolve constantly, so they can basically keep you in a state of reaction. So it's like you're always like screwing up a little bit, but not enough to have anything really bad happen to you. So you're always kind of basically paying the fine, but not getting the time. So it's this revenue generation kind of stuff. And at least with guns, there can be some sort of moral, like, oh, it's a personal safety, it's a public safety thing. So it's a little more serious in that regard. But yeah, he and a bunch of other people will say like there's stuff that's constantly being, changed. So you'll have an item that 2 weeks ago, like it could be not the gun itself, it could be like an accessory that 2 weeks ago was legal and now it's illegal. Well, okay. I'm now possessing a illegal item. And I mean, they know this. The government knows this. It's not
Yeah.
like,
It's trying to trick you out.
but at the same time, it's just like, well, but they won't implement. I mean, they have in the past, but they don't. Certain things they won't implement programs where you can do a safe legal surrender to where you're like, okay, we understand that this was legal at one point, now it's not. You can safely bring it into this authority, surrender it, no charges, nothing. You're fine. It's okay as long as you have it registered. You're fine. Okay, but we're right by Nevada, where a lot of the stuff is still legal. So then you're going in Nevada. Well, that's trafficking guns into another state. So, people I know, and Travis isn't one of these people. I'm not implicating him because doesn't apply to him, but other people in my life who got some really cool guns. I'm not even a gun person, but holy crap, they got some cool stuff that is not currently legal. And not just because, the stock is a little different. No, we're talking like this could like rip a lot of people in half, like crazy, crazy stuff. And they're like, well, yeah, shit. I mean, it is really cool, but I'm not looking to get in any trouble here. So, well, what do you do with it? You sell it. You try to sell it. Well, this is not only a little illegal. This is really illegal. Well, I could go to Nebraska. You could go to Nevada. Oh, that's interstate gun trafficking. That's extremely illegal. So then you're just kind of like, well, here's this thing under my bed in a locked box or in a closet with a lock on it.
Yeah, it's like everywhere you go, there's a loophole.
Yeah, exactly. So you're like, I have this thing that's this like white elephant, like, or this sort of just like this. What do I do with this? Yet you can't like take it out to I mean, if you have like a private range or if you go out to the desert, yeah, you could probably take it out there and, do some damage or have fun with it. But at the same time, all the what ifs. What if I get pulled over and they want to search the car for some weird off the wall reason? Well, I've got a very illegal gun in that trunk, where I'm gonna get popped, So it's, I don't know.
Absolutely.
I like guns in the way, because my family, like I said, we're kind of grew up on a farm and all that, and you have guns. I mean, that's the one thing, like there's like the enthusiasts and there's more practical. Like my family their identity was not, I have these weapons. It was like, well, I have this rifle, this 22 rifle, because my dad was like, back in the day, I was drafted and they gave everyone one of these, and now I just use it to shoot groundhogs or whatever. And then a shotgun and then a pistol, like, oh, we took that from grandpa when he started to lose it, blah, 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 just for his own safety and everything. So it's just all of a sudden we have 3 or 4 guns, and it's not based on us having any sort of like Second Amendment, like need to have it. It's like, it's a tool,
Yeah.
and that's I was brought up to be like, it's a tool, but it's also potentially a fatal tool. So respect it. Here's how to work it. Here's how to be safe with it. And they were always there. But like, I think there was the most resounding part of it. And maybe this is because of the time in history. But it just wasn't like part of our identity. It was just like, yeah, here's a tool. Keep it over here.
I think that's a good way to look at it, to be honest, for sure.
Yeah, bullets are there if you need to use it. Don't be an idiot. We know, we taught you, blah, blah, blah. And I and my brother were like never tempted to like, yeah, we had BB guns growing up that we'd shoot at sparrows or whatever. But the guns, it was like, why would I get that thing out? It's like, oh, like my dad said, oh, there's some coyotes that are chasing the calves. Yeah, go sit here and maybe take a shot at one if you see it, maybe that, but that's it, and there was, for our personal leisure, that wasn't even a thing. I mean, like my brother and I, that was not part of our personal leisure. Although I will say at Thanksgiving, have your dinner, grandma's over, family and everything like that. This is always very advisable behavior. After grandma leaves, start drinking, then you bring the guns out. That's when the fun starts. Drinking and guns is the best combination ever. So just, you go out in the backyard, you set up, get some hay bales out there, some straw bales, I should say. Maybe set up a gallon jug of water, and you just like try your marksmanship out back. And that's one of the advantages of living in the country. So
that sounds super fun, to be fair.
Yeah, exactly. It was like I said, practical. It's a tool, and then here's this one element of leisure, but my identity as an American or whatever is not tied to that thing at all.
Yeah.
But then again, time in history too. So.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like our gun laws are very strict to the point where it's like, the amount of hoops you have to jump through to get a gun in this country, like you're probably okay if you do successfully get one. You're probably okay to have one. You know what I mean? Like it's one of those things. It's like, you have to really work for it if you want one. But even then, my friend Danny, same Danny, works in a gun shop, and he said to me daily, because they're allowed to just like, people are allowed to just drop shit off there, and like they'll hand it to the police if they need and stuff like that. But a lot of the time, he said that they'll still get people that drop shit off, and they're like, where the fuck did you get this?
Yeah.
This has been illegal for like 50 years.
Yeah.
It's like, this is not good. It's like, oh, can you not dispose of it? He's like, nah, we can't even give this to the police. Like,
yeah, this implicates us. So we're just going to push this across the counter, and I'm going to turn around and it's going to be gone, and you're going to take it. We never had this conversation.
Yeah, no, like they said once someone came in like with something that was like almost, I might be incriminating him here, but something that was like pretty much fully automatic. Now it's strictly, you can't get anything fully automatic in the UK. Like it's all modded to be bolt action. And he was like, hey, and he goes, I'm not seeing any like bolt action or anything like this on this rifle. He's like, oh, it's fully automatic. He went, yeah, no rifle in the UK, so that's either illegal or so old, like that and he was like, he just couldn't wrap his head around it, and he was like, so can't you take it from me? He's like, no, I think you should really go to the police and get this fucking destroyed.
Yeah, they're gonna put it in the smelter and just like or run it over with like symbolically with a steamroller or something like that.
Yeah, they get all sorts. They get like illegal knives, guns, everything. It's like they're like, that's how the fuck do they get these people get this stuff?
Yeah, occasionally they'll do those things where they do the gun surrender. Like they do have a program where it's illegal and they'll surrender them, and then they'll make this big thing of it to where like they have like they'll spread them out all on the ground and have this giant like highway pavement steamroller flattener and just run over them all, or they'll put them in like those big macerators where there's like the teeth machine that has they'll throw them in there and then televise it and. It's like, woohoo! This many guns off the street. Yeah, most of those were under a guy's bed probably for like 35 years. But whatever.
It's not even work anymore.
I get the point. Yeah. So it's and one of the problems in as they talk about gang violence and this easy access to guns in states that were certain types of guns are illegal to possess, and the argument is like, oh well. See how this works. It's like, well, based where you are in the country, and I'm going to use Chicago as an example, like, well, here's Wisconsin, here's Illinois, Chicago, Indiana, Iowa, Michigan. Okay, I'm in Indiana. Oh, these guns are legal here.
Stop into side to side.
I am literally go like this and I'm in Illinois. Yeah, so it's like,
it's much as like the police like chasing you and you just like hop over. Wait, no.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like
getting this time, boys.
Looney Tunes thing. Yeah. Although strangely enough, like Indiana was getting blamed for years and years because of literally it's butted up against Chicago, and a bunch of stuff's legal over there. But I think they were tracing the serial numbers, a lot of the guns, and they're actually coming in through Iowa, which is weird because that's still like I think to get to the border is like maybe a 2.5 hour drive from Chicago area. So. I don't know. Whereas Indiana is literally like, here I am, this kind of thing. So I don't know, but it's just like, it's setups like that, where it's just like, how do you control the flow of all that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, thank you so much for coming on, man. It's been great chatting with you. It's been crazy because obviously Cattle Decapitation is actually one of our favorite bands. And so it's been amazing getting to chat about everything.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Thank you guys. And I'm glad you enjoy the record.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like what Brad said, like since I first got into death metal, you guys have always been like top of my list of bands that I'm a massive fan of.
Thank you.
So when we got this booked in, I said to Brad, like, this is like, this is great. Like, I can't wait to talk to him. Like, so yeah, this was one that I've been looking forward to all week. So yeah, thank you for coming.
Good. Well, I hope that you guys enjoyed your time. I did. So hope everything turns out well with everything.
Hope to see you guys in the UK soon.
Yeah, absolutely. When we were trying to put together, it's gonna be probably, I'm guessing, early next year. I think
sounds good to me.
But we had when we really pitched the idea of the tour, it was like mostly UK actually. Like we might have to, for budget reasons and just practicality and stuff, do more than just a tiny handful of like mainland stuff. It might end up being more like a week, 10 days over there. But there's going to be probably 10 to 12 UK shows, which is great because usually it's just
to be on the list.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, actually, it's Doncaster isn't too far from you guys, right?
No, don't go to Doncaster. You don't.
No. I'm saying no. Not to go to play there, but like I use my high watt amp person, and that they're based at Doncaster. So I could be like, hey, it's not too far. You don't have to drive. I think they drove one of the guys drove 2 hours last time to drop off the amp with me and stuff. So now we could just 20 minutes in the car or whatever. So
yeah, it's not too far at all. Doncaster. I used to go swimming there every weekend with my parents. So yeah, it's not too far at all.
Cool. Well, yeah, hopefully we're hitting at least the prospective dates I saw were I don't say exhaustive, but pretty thorough. Because in the past we usually just 2 or 3 obvious places and maybe sort of one wild card that's oh, okay, and then that's it. Whereas this is all the obvious stuff, all the secondary stuff, and then 3 shows in Ireland, and then back over and a couple in Scotland and stuff. So a couple in Wales too. So yeah, decent amount of stuff.
Perfect. Yeah, looking forward to it. And if you listen now, Terrasite drops pretty soon, and it's fucking amazing. So check it out when it comes.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you so much, man, and wish you the best. Hopefully see
Yeah,
you
you guys
soon.
too. Thank you for having me.
Take care, man.
Okay.